Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patricia Alba. I'm Assistant Director for Communications and Work Life at UFHR. And today we have Family and Consumer Sciences Agent Nelly Nelson, who will talk to us about hurricane preparedness. Before we get started, just know that this webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat and Nelly will answer them as we go through the presentation. Other than that, please make sure your microphone is muted so we avoid any interruptions. Nelly, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for sharing your lunchtime with us today to talk about hurricane preparedness. Something that I want to mention with you is what is extension and IFAS? A lot of people start to say, what is these members do? We are University of Florida IFAS, Institute of Food and Agriculture Science, and that stands for the institute, as I mentioned, and we provide research-based knowledge from our university to the local level through our county extension offices and into our communities. Our mission is to provide resources to enhance and sustain quality of life. For the map, you can see that extension offices are in each of the Florida 67 counties. That includes 12 research and education centers, research and demonstration sites, and several other offices located throughout the state. Faculty members have a specialized area that works with all these offices. So hurricane, the forecast for 2025, you can see in the screen. One of the key factors that contributing to tropical development in 2025 is the abundance of warm water available to fuel the storms. The water temperatures across most of the Atlantic are above average for this time of the year, as you can see it. Waters are expected to stay warm throughout most of the hurricane season, which will prime storms for explosive development. Water temperatures near the equator and eastern Pacific Ocean will also be important, as this is the region that can swan La Niña and El Niño events. Although these phenomena occur in the Pacific, they have far-reaching effects that can either boost or suppress tropical activity across the Atlantic. NOAA outlook for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, which goes from June 1st to November 30th, predicts a 30% chance of near normal season, a 60% chance of above normal season, and 10% chance of below normal season. The agency is forecasting a range of 13 to 19 total named storms that are named in alphabetical order. And of those, 6 to 10 that are forecast to become hurricanes. That means the winds of 74 miles per hour or higher, including 3 to 5 major hurricanes. These categories could be 3, 4, or 5, with winds of 111 miles per hour or higher. NOAA has 70% confidence in these ranges, for your information. And you can see how we have done for the previous 30-year historical average. You can see the data here in the table provide for AccuWeather from 1990 to 2020, and how was previous year 2024, where we have 3 substantial impacts in Florida. Manatee County suffered Helene and Milton, and located in Manatee County. Something that is important to see is the difference between a watch and a hurricane warning. The difference indicates potential conditions, while warning indicates that conditions are imminent. What does that mean? What we need to do when we have received the hurricane watch? We need to rush all preparations to completion. That means move all they lose objects inside so they don't know become airborne high winds, tape and board all the windows. If you live in a storm surge prone area and your house is at ground level, use this time to move furniture and essentials to higher floors, if possible to protect them from flooding. Prepare to evacuate if you are told to. Typical emergency managers will not order mandatory evacuations immediately after a hurricane watch is issued. Still, if you are located in an evacuation zone, especially a highly populated area, it's likely that you might be asked to evacuate quite soon. Review your evacuation plans. You should have a plan already in place before the storm hits. Later, you're going to see where you can find this information. Something that is recommended as well is monitor any TV, radio, and weather radio reports. Look for official sources of information. Do not make decisions based of what you hear secondhand or through an official social media post. Official forecasts are provided by both the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service. Have your emergency kit and supplies ready. These should include essential documents, medication, cash, clothes, non-perishable food, water, and battery-powered emergency radio. And remember, after the storm hits, you may be cut off from essential services, sometimes per hour, sometimes per days. If it's best to stock up with supplies and have a plan well in advance of a watch being issued. What we do when we have the warning. The same thing, follow evacuation orders for local officials. You can see how many is the different in hours. Prepare your house for the storm, grab your emergency kit, leave immediately if you are ordered to do so. For those inside voluntary evacuation areas, you might choose to stay, but you could become cut off from essential services if you are succeed if you do. Something I want to mention is we are in the counties and we are working with the county officials governments. So when that is something that happened like this, the county cannot go to send emergency cars to do a rescue because sometimes bridges are lifted off, roads are closed. At this moment for the hurricane warning, all the preparation should be completed. Keep your kit with you and continuous monitoring local media and forecasts. During the hurricane, if you stay put, stay inside and stay away from windows. Once the storm starts, do not leave your shelter. Take cover in an interior room, closet, or hallway on the lowest level away from any window. Put as many walls between you and the outside as you can. Do not go outside as there may be flying debris in the area if the eye of the storm passes over your area. There will be a short period of calm, but at the other side of the wind speed rapidly increases to hurricane force winds and will come from the opposite direction. Only leave the shelter when instructed to do so by the authorities. Clearly, you can see in the graphic the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. You can see what happened with the household depending on the category. This scale rates hurricanes from number 1 to 5 based on the intensity of the sustained winds. It is important to note that the Saffir-Simpson scale illustrates the peak of sustained winds in a hurricane. Wind gusts, which come and go, will reach speeds above categories, above these numbers. In addition, hurricane winds rapidly increase in strength as they move from the other edge of a storm toward the able wall. You can start to see how the wind increase. You can see that for miles per hour, and you can see that in kilometers. And you can see in the graphic the structural damage. This scale helps estimate potential property damage and does not account for other hazards like storm surge or flooding. That's something that has happened in numerous counties here in Florida with the flooding. Areas that were not flooded before for the amount of water that is coming down has increased. What are the 3 actions that we need to do? The first thing is, as we live in the Florida state, we need to create a kit. We need to make a plan and stay informed. What does this mean? Gather all the information you can create to make your plan according to the needs of your family and the members that live with you. Learn about community response plans, evacuation plans, and designate emergency centers. At national and state level is a system that is called Alert. Every individual in every county can sign for it. You can open sometimes in specific counties the test number that you need to include that you were signed, or when you open the offices of the county offices, you're going to see a link when you're going to put the address that you are located, the phone number. The alert is going to come to your mobile device, and you going to receive a knowledge of these alerts. And these alerts are for everything. Sometimes it's spills of gas, flooding, fire, anything that is happening around the county and is related to your zip code of area live, you receive all the information. Something that is recommended as well for the part of staying informed is buy a battery operated weather radio. Learn the risks in your area. Something that individuals don't know is the evacuation zone and FEMA zone, where your house is located. In this gathered information, follow the instructions from local emergency managers. There is a communication that is going to happen in all the states, all the counties has activated their emergency operation centers. The county is controlling everything for them, and information is disseminated from this. These managers work closely with the state, local, tribal, and territorial agencies and partners. They will provide the latest recommendations based on the threat of your community and appropriate safety measures. Something that we need to see is recognize the warnings and alerts, as I mentioned. There are several ways that you can sign to receive it. Could be calls, could be text message. I encourage everyone here today, sign for these community alerts in your area. You can access the emergency alert system IFAS and the wireless emergency alert WEA as well. We're required to sign up, as I mentioned before. The new service enables users to submit requests for service or information throughout the web, app, and phone options. Sometimes you can take pictures and send those pictures as well. The emergency alert system is the official source for information and instructions regarding natural hazards. This information can originate from county, state, and federal agencies. The statewide network will activate by the National Weather Service to announce weather-related watches or warnings. Florida Public Radio Emergency Network, FREN, is a public safety and emergency alerting service covering the entire state of Florida through a collective 14 public media broadcasters. They provide Floridans with the latest information regarding several weather events, including but not limited to hurricanes, tropical storms, flooding, wildfires, freezes. These operate in the University of Florida, provides partners stations with live action coverage and pre-produced content for all media platforms 24/7, 365 days a year. If you live in Alachua County, the county government there, this is the test number that you need to put in your test message to receive and sign for these alerts. Alachua, and the number that you need to put in your message is 888-777 that you can receive real-time county updates. FEMA offered as well the sign for these alerts. Everybody can sign. A lot of people start to mention that one of the most important things that we need to create is a family communication plan. What does that mean? It's necessary to include all the family members, those that have special needs or those with limited mobility. When you have individuals with the special needs of limited mobility in case of a loss of power, every county requires a sign-in. This usually stops days before the storm. When the storm is very close to the area, as I mentioned before, emergency services cannot be dispatched to your location. So that is recommended that the individual sign for these services before, and this is something that a lot of people forget to do. Please, I have been in the other side of the area because I need to go to the emergency operations center, and it's very sad to see the amount of calls that came for individuals that didn't register, and now nobody can go to help them. Something that we need to see is create the communication plan before the hurricane came. Please write them down. Create a document with contact information for family, friends, and service providers. Share that with all the members of your family. Plan to communicate. Decide how to communicate during the disaster. Choose a meeting place. Pick 2 places to meet family or household members. Usually, these places are outside of flooding areas, of evacuation areas. Plan to evacuate. Discuss the evacuation plans that you have that your family has. Y schedule a meeting. Something that a lot of people doesn't do is sometimes we need to regularly review and update our plan. And we forget to do this sometimes for year to year. A lot of people start to saying, okay, the kit, what is the first thing I need to have? As a homeowner or as a rental property, something that we need to check before this is the insurance coverage. Have that, see what is covering in your property or not, and check that. Inventory home possessions. A lot of individuals take pictures, a few individuals take videos of everything that you have. Gather essential patterns and papers and documents, and put everything in a plastic bag, Ziploc bag container that water doesn't going to damage these documents. Have the maintenance card up to date, and something that individuals say, okay, I'm going to try to have supplies for 72 hours or 2 days. It's recommended gather a little longer of time, 7-day supply. What are the kind of things that we need to put in the kit? A lot of people say, what I need to put? Water, 1 gallon per person per day for several days from drinking and sanitation. Food, at least several days supply of non-perishable food. Battery powered on hand crank radio that has a NOAA weather radio station alert. Flashlights, first aid kit, extra batteries. Whistle to signal for help sometimes is necessary. Dust mask, plastic sheeting sometimes, scissors, duct tape, moist towels, garbage bags, plastic ties for personal sanitation, wrench or pliers to turn off utilities. A lot of people forget when they are evacuating or when they are moving, turn off the utilities in your home. Please remember to do this. Manual can opener. If we lose power, we need to have something to open all the cans, local maps, cell phone with charges and backup battery. What are the other things that we need to put in this kit? A lot of people put extra flashlights, lanterns, batteries. I already mentioned the food for 7 days, the water supply. Remember, please have 1 gallon per individual. So if you have 4 members in your family, there needs to be 4 gallons of water per day for these individuals in your household. And remember, have this for at least 7 days. A lot of people struggle with the foods to consider. It's recommendable to have shelf-stable foods, non-perishable. That means require no cooking or refrigeration and are easily prepared. Don't forget, include all the family members that you have in this preparation. Something that we need to remember as well is foods that appeal to family members. Foods for special dietary needs, baby food for young children, baby formula for infants, and food for pets. Something that is very recommendable is buy ice packs and coolers days before the hurricane arrives in case there is a prolonged power outage. And pour water into containers and freeze it to make ice. Use an appliance thermometer to determine the safety of your perishable foods. A lot of people that doesn't think sometimes in the temperature of the food. Meat, poultry, fish, and egg products must be kept at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below, and frozen food at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or below. For meats, check the canned goods aisle in your local grocery store for canned meats. These are fully cooked and open canned meats don't require refrigeration. That is the only thing. Start to thinking and grab when you're going to buy supplies, things that are easy to grab, things that are easy to consume and don't require a lot of cooking and refrigeration. Something that a lot of individuals needs to think as well is the pets. Gather food and water for them as well. We need to gather all. When it's recommended in the kit, refer to pets are 10 items. They recommend at least 3 days supply in an airtight water food container, water for them as well, at least 3 days supplied, medicine and medical records. Most boarding kennels, veterinarians, and animal shelters will require your pet's medical records to ensure all vaccinations are up to date. Important document, registration information, adoption papers, vaccination documents, and something that we need to verify if the pet has the microchip chipping and enrolling your pet in a recovery database if you are separated for it. Something that you need to bring with you as well is your collar and harness with ID tags, the rabies tags, leash, a crate or pet carrier. Have and start this safe crate or carrier in case you need to evacuate. The carrier should be large enough for your pet to stand, turn around, and lay down. Everything that is necessary in sanitation for your pet, like if you had a litter box, appropriate newspapers, paper towels, plastic trash bags, and household chlorine bleach. You need to bring as well familiar items for them, treats, toys, and bedding can help reduce the stress on your pet. You are stressed during these situations, your pets and your kids are stressed as well, and they sense that stress for you. Pets that help people with disabilities are allowed in general population shelters and Red Cross shelters as long as they meet the requirements for serving animals under the federal law. We need to see the ADA requirement for service animals. However, only selected emergency shelters accept regular pets. That means the ones that are not service animals. So finding a pet-friendly shelter may be difficult. Contact your local emergency management agency for information about which emergency shelter allow pets. Try to call the shelter before you go, as some pet-friendly shelters may require advance notice. Your local Humane Society or veterinary hospital may also give you information about this. In the case of during the days, the county start to open shelters. But when the storm and the severity of the hurricane on winds and storm increase, shelters are open and sometimes this is lifted off, so pets are received in shelters that before they were not recommended for pets because of the severity of the storm. Now the majority of shelters in situations like that, they are open. A lot of people struggle with the food that we need to consider to keep at home during these times. Something that is recommended is look for food that is nutrient-dense food. That means those that provide high amount of vitamins, minerals, and other beneficial components with relatively few calories. A few examples of these include, for example, fruits and vegetables. A wide variety of fruits and vegetables are excellent source of vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Whole grains, such as brown rice, quinoa, oats, provide fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Lean meats and poultry. They have rich in protein and essential nutrients like iron and zinc. Seafood, especially fatty fish like salmon, which are a good source of omega-3, fatty acids, and protein. Legumes, including beans, lentils, peas, are excellent source of protein, fiber, and various vitamins and minerals. Nuts and seeds provide healthy fats, proteins, and various vitamins and minerals. Fat-free or low-fat dairy products, good source of calcium, protein, and other essential nutrients. Eggs provide protein, choline, and essential fats. Liver and other organ meats rich in iron, vitamin B, and vitamin E. Of course, a lot of people sometimes trying to keep the leftovers of the food and trying to consume. If we lose electricity, the minimum amount that is permitted to consume leftovers are 3 days. So this food needs to be consumed in 3 days if they are in the refrigerator. Something that we need to think is emotional distress and stress. This happens to everyone. Happens to parents, children, teens, older adults, and first responders. The forecast for hurricanes and tropical storms can last for days, and they can take shape. People living in a hurricane-prone areas, as well as anyone who has struggled to recover for experiences in the past storms, may be vulnerable to distress before the event occurs. Children and teens after a hurricane, young people may worry that another hurricane storm will happen again. They may become overly dependent, have trouble eating and sleeping, or show physical symptoms, sometimes stomach aches and headaches. Older adults are more likely to need social support to reduce the effects of stress and move forward to the path of recovery. Some older adults may also be dealing with the loss of physical capabilities and possible independence. First responders and recovery workers, these individuals experience prolonged separation from their loved ones, depending on the severity of the storm or hurricane, and they show signs of mental fatigue. Once warnings and evacuation orders are issued, the risk for emotional distress becomes greater. Something that increases this is if we have at home and we are hearing the news all the time. If somebody's listening the news 24/7, this increases the level of stress as well. Once warnings of evacuation orders are issued, thus the risk of emotional the stress becomes greater. So a lot of individuals start to feeling isolated, unprepared, uncertain. Of course, every one of us we suffer from fear and unfamiliar environment. Somebody that has moved new to the area or new to the state and is the first hurricane that is coming, this is an unfamiliar environment for them. Uncertainty about where you need to go during the hurricane, how to keep your pet safe, or whether you will be able to continue taking any medications. It's recommendable that you have at least 1 month supply of medications with you, because in case of power outage, sometimes pharmacies can lose communication and you cannot have the refill of your medications faster. You may lose contact with a loved one and impacted area due, as I mentioned, power of internet outage. Sometimes the internet decreases and people start to have distress because they cannot communicate with a member that lives in the area that was impacted. If you are relocated, being in an unfamiliar environment can be difficult, especially for people with limited physical mobility, again, economic means, or knowledge of the English language. That is one of the barriers as well. This is a clear graphic for FEMA that how a house is prepared in case that we lose power. The general rule when preparing for a hazardous events is to be self-sufficient. That means for a minimum of 72 hours. Depending on the severity of the event, basic supplies from the government may be unavailable or unaccessible for several days thereafter. If you are sheltering in place or turning home while utilities are still disrupted, a week of 2 weeks worth of supplies is advised. However, it is always recommended to evacuate when told to do so. What is the kind of food that we can have if we lose electricity? If the temperatures of the refrigerator and freezer are maintained, the perishable foods and foods that are in the refrigerator are safe to consume between 2 and 4 hours when the doors are closed. And if the foods are in the freezer, this time is between 2 and 3 days as well when the doors remain closed. It's recommended use non-perishable food. That means there is no a closest expiration date to this. A lot of people doesn't recognize where they live. When we buy a property, we move to a new area. Some of the things that we need to look with your county is what kind of evacuation zone are you living? You can see all the different zones that the Florida Disaster Maps ARGIS has. You can go to this website, you can put your address, and you can see which zone area are you living. The first one that I recommending to live sometimes are mobile homes, and those are the first one at the top of the list, and there are mandatory evacuations when a storm comes to the county. As I mentioned, typically this something that we need to mention is the practice to evacuate. It's recommendable to go to another area that is not the same zone that you live in. If you are in a zone A, you cannot evacuate to another place that has a zone A. You need to go to a different level. So for that, we need to follow the instructions for local emergency managers, work closely with the state, local, and all the agencies, and they are updating this information constantly. That is recommendable to be hearing the radio stations. And every year is important for residents to know if they live in an evacuation zone. Sometimes it's modified because, like I mentioned before, Helene and Milton last year, there were flooding areas in neighborhoods that previously they were never flooding. So every year it's important for residents to know your area, to know if it's a low-lying flood-prone area or mobile home or an unsafe structure during the hurricane season. These areas and buildings are most likely to be evacuated, and knowing these areas helps Floridans to prepare to evacuate and better understand orders from local officials. This year is also very important for residents to know their home. If an evacuation order is no issue for your area and your house is not in the evacuation zone, you might consider sheltering in place. If you shelter in place, that means stay in your home. It's important to know your home and its ability to withstand strong winds and heavy rain. When we are determined to stay or leave, a lot of people sometimes stay or stay with a friend or leave the area. Some individuals move sometimes for counties, stay in a hotel. So it is best to bring your emergency kit with you, ensuring you have necessary supplies. Mass care sheltering can involve living with many people in a confined air space, which can be difficult and unpleasant for a lot of individuals. That's something that we need to be aware of that one. The house. A 2005 University of Florida study concluded that homes built under the 2002 Florida Building Code sustained less damage on average than homes built between 1994 and 2001 under the standard building code. The Florida Building Code has been updated to enhance hurricane resistance, particularly after significant events like the Hurricane Andrew. The A edition that was in the 2023 includes updates that integrate the latest changes to the International Residential Code with customized amendments from Florida. The code applies to all construction, ensuring that buildings meet higher wind resistance standards, especially in high-velocity hurricane zones. South Florida building codes are recognized for their strength, having undergone significant improvements since 1994 to withstand hurricane impacts. Now there are as well windows, doors, all this stuff that improves the safety of the house. We need to see what are the safe routes to go to a shelter. And a lot of people doesn't know what are the things that they need to take when they are going to mobilize to a shelter. We need to take, of course, sleeping bags, pillows, blankets, towels, washcloths, personal hygiene products, extra clothing, medication. Please note the expiration dates of the medication, folding chair, lawn chair, snacks, games, toys, and important documents. These are the main things that we need to have when we are preparing for a hurricane. Thank you. I'm going to see something else. Alba, please let me know.
Okay, so if you guys have, thank you, Nelly, first for all the information. If you guys have any questions, you're free to unmute yourself or drop them in the chat. There are a lot of links we've dropped in the chat that just leads to different resources. We do have more hurricane webinars coming up next week as well as the following week. So if you want to register for that information, you can do that. Let me see. Anybody has any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Lindsay. She just dropped the Alert Florida information that you can register. It depends on the county that you live in that one, and you receive the information directly to your mobile device. Thank you. And Jody Betancourt put here as well, helpful tip, place items in the dishwasher and it's sealed and won't allow water inside. Interesting, thank you.
Natalie asks, what wind speed or category of hurricane do you need to put up hurricane shutters?
It depends of the category of the band, but the majority of people sometimes put plywood, and those, when they see substantial, sometimes over a 3, when it's a number over 3, they put those there at the moment. Because the wind change and the pattern change. So there are, like last year, for example, when Milton and Helene was coming, and we were impacted with a difference of 2 weeks between every storm. So in that one, the charters stayed there in position because the storm was, and the level was higher. But with the wind change, sometimes they predict that the storm goes to move to the south or to the north, and when it's a pattern change, if you then put those, that's how you're going to protect for them if they are not there. A lot of people even sometimes put it when it's a category 2 because they don't have whether the windows don't have enough protection.
Jason, the recording of the video will be uploaded on YouTube, and I'll drop a link to the YouTube channel in the
Okay,
chat.
some Constance put here, if you leave town, you should let others know that you're alone. Of course, that's part of the communication plan, the family communication plan. When you are leaving, you need to let the people know where you are living. A lot of members that have, for example, parents living here and the family members live in the north, that is one of the main calls to the emergency operations center because they cannot find the family members. There are loss of cell phone communication. There is no radio. There is no internet. So you need to let them know where are you? Where are you going to be going? Something else?
Can you touch on the tax exempt hurricane items that Florida has?
Okay, that is a there is a lot of information in social media for that one, and I post, and I think so that you guys already put that information as well. There are different items like appliances, like energy appliances, like the windows. Is as well. There are counties offering different rebates when you are changing your utilities and things inside of the house, like toilet seats, but the energy appliances has a huge discount. And there is something as well that is the panels, energy solar panels. When the individual wants to keep the energy in the house, I think so those expire in 2026. So that's something that people needs to be updating and see. And always in social media are information about these ones.
Any other questions? Let's see. Nelly, would you be able to share your PowerPoint with me so we can share it as
Yes,
well?
yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Also, at the start of the chat, I did put a link to the flood zone, the evacuation zones, I should say, in Florida, if you're not
Yeah.
aware of where your evacuation zone is located.
Something that we need to remember as well is when we move to a new county, sometimes we don't know which roads flood. And a lot of people, when are driving or leaving work and it's severe raining, they find that the road is completely flooding because they are new to the area and they don't know that this road is flooding.
What can we expect on your next two webinars?
The Dr. Lindsay is going to be providing next week information about what is happening before the scenes that things that you don't see that are handled at a state level, local area level, and everything and all the information that is provided for emergency services as well, what tools and links are able in case that somebody has suffered for a impacted area and recovery, how those process, how that take, what are the follow-ups points that we need to follow to do all of this. And thank you, Dr. Lindsay just put the SALS text exception extends disaster preparedness in the chat. The person that was looking for that, the items that were there, you can see those. So right now, until August 1st, everything that is batteries, fire extinguishers, insect repellent, life jackets, portable gas of diesel cans, generators, smoke detection devices, waterproof tarps, sunscreen, and ground anchor systems to tie out your boat. IFAS extension as well has a handbook for disaster preparedness that includes all the areas, not only for homeowners, for everything else. So I recommend that you guys check that as well.
Any more questions or comments? There was one suggestion about putting water in the freezer and freezing it and putting like a penny on top of it. So if you leave your home for more than 3 days and the penny has sunk, then you know that you've lost power and the food might not be safe to eat anymore.
Yeah, because a lot of people go to sometimes evacuation and they think that the food is good and they don't know that they have lost power. Yes, it's a good tip. Thank you. I have not heard that one, but thank you.
Where can we find our evacuation locations? So like, I guess if you need to evacuate somewhere, how do you know where to go?
Remember the site for disaster. Let me open that, and I'm going to copy the link that you guys know exactly where that you can see that one. You can see the map, the GIS map I show you in the presentation. That is the one that you can go to check, and I'm going to copy the link in the chat. Is the GIS map. You know that one. I just put that in the chat. That shows all Florida. So it depends if you are, because you are teaching in another place, or if you are in a vacation or doing something, you can see all the map of Florida in all the 67 counties, and you're going to see that there. Something else?
Any more questions or tips? Any comments?
Thank you for your tips. Those tips that you are giving, I have not heard about any interesting. I have not heard that one.
It's a good one, and it makes sense, right? If you lost power, the water not frozen. Yeah.
You're right. What is the best way to know when they open the shelters? That is usually on TV and radio. The county, it depends of the county. That's something that you need to be, I advise as well. Please follow everything in social media for your county, where are you living, because all the information is released that. And they will tell you it's a list of shelters that are open. If the intensity increase, they open more shelters. And Dr. Lindsay mentioned the dishwasher one. Never heard that one. Great idea. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I have never heard about the dishwasher. Interesting, because it's sealed. Yep. So please be update with all the information of the county. A lot of people forget to do that. And the county emergency center is the ones to disseminate the information of all the shelters. They are the one to control and working. And all the faculty members that are in all the 67, we have work sometimes in a shelter or doing something post-recovery, before the recovery, during the hurricane, working one-to-one with the county.
There's also the UF alert one, so like any UF related announcements will be disseminated either through the main UF website. So like if you go to UF alert, the U right at the top, when we're going through a hurricane, they'll have information. Or if you have the UF alert on your phone, which I recommend you download it, it provides very important information about what UF is doing during the hurricane.
Yep, you need to have both.
Yeah.
You need to have both, because I tell you, the wind change and pattern change, so a lot of people doesn't realize that one, and or a lot of people doesn't even have the food prepared for the time that is happening. And when you're going to buy something, or sometimes the first thing that goes is water. You're going to buy water and there's no water available.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is there a way to find flooding zones in your specific area?
Yep, yep. The map, the link I just put, the Florida disaster maps, that has those. You put your address and they will show you in the county what are those according to, remember the colors I start to start for zone A, the map shows all that. And please check that, because a lot of people doesn't know which area they live on. And that's the first thing. There's a lot of the percentage of calls that the emergency center receives. This is my address, what kind of zone I live with. You can find that online.
Yeah. Why do counties seem to wait a long time to open the shelters?
That, my goodness, that is a good question for Dr. Lindsay, that she works with directly with them, because they are waiting. Sometimes they are waiting to see if there is a moving of the pattern of the storm, and those are disseminated at state level. So they are waiting to see what is the state is mentioning. So it's a like a line of protocol they need to be filled up to do that. Somebody, Greg, put the flood map search as well for FEMA. Thank you. Yep. Dr. Lindsay mentioned a lot of times is a ability to manage shelters at schools. That's correct. The majority of shelters are schools. Those are the ones that are selected as a shelter for the building construction. Yep.
And for those of you who don't have cars, do keep in mind the buses stop running once the wind gets to a certain degree. So if you are in a flood zone and could potentially need to go to a shelter, need to take the bus there, then you want to do it before. You want to anticipate that.
Yep.
Okay, any more questions? Let's see. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Anything else you want to add, Nelly, before we sign off for
No,
today?
thank you so much for spending your lunch times today to talking about hurricane preparedness. Just start June 1st to November 30th. So please be prepared, be informed, and be safe.
Well, thank you, Nelly. We appreciate the information and hope you all join us next week for the next hurricane preparedness webinar. And we have 2 more after that. So I hope you all can join us for that. Okay, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.